they would have been made unclean by their high priest, from which they needed cleansing. Now, could you see anything more absolutely specific in the lesson that teaches? The very next chapter was the death of their high priest. And they, of course, would mourn for him 30 days. They would attend his funeral. They were all unclean. That's what their high priest did for them. Whereas this offering, brothers and sisters, was absolutely unique. In this sense, it was made entirely outside the camp. Oh, yeah, there were sacrifices whose bodies were burnt outside the camp. But the blood went in a different direction, into the most holy. But this one, brothers and sisters, was made entirely out there, way out there. It was completely separate from the law. And it was the only sacrifice to remove the taint occasioned by contact with the death of a human being. If you contacted an animal, for example, if you say went out in the fields and you tripped over a dead animal, you were unclean till the evening. If next day you went out there to bury that animal, to make deliberate contact with it, you were not only unclean until the evening, but you had to wash your clothes. All your clothes you had on, you had to wash them. That's what happened with an animal. But with a man, with a human being, a man or a woman, even if you haven't touched the body, if you're in proximity to it, if you're just near the thing, it immediately sent you outside the camp. And the lesson was, brothers and sisters, that out there was a sacrifice that could remove death. And it was the only sacrifice that could be used more than once. Why? Because it was a heifer, is a big animal. And it would be rendered down into ashes. It would make quite a pile of ashes. And it is said in the Jewish history that possibly only one animal would be required by each priest during the whole course of his ministry. Because all that was needed was a little pinch of those ashes in running water to cleanse people. So it was a sacrifice that could be used more than once. And it was a lesson, brothers and sisters, of what the law could not do. And this was I believe this fountain is going to be opened in Jerusalem, is going to be the preeminent sacrifice that's going to perform these things which the law could not do. And here's what Jesus did. His sacrifice was out there, just like the red heifer. His sacrifice cleanses us from dead works. That's what Paul says in Hebrews. And he was made one sacrifice for sins forever. And you know, one of the most interesting things about the red heifer, brothers and sisters, is that the priest had to sprinkle its blood directly before the tabernacle. There was only 3 offerings to the most holy place, just 3. It was the goat of the Day of Atonement, the bullock for the sin offering, and the blood of the red heifer. Now, the blood of the red heifer never actually literally went in there. But the instruction of Numbers 19 was that the priest was to face Jerusalem, put his finger in the blood, and sprinkle it 7 times directly towards the front of the tabernacle. To do that, brothers and sisters, he would have to be in the Garden of Gethsemane. He couldn't be anywhere else. Because directly in front of the eastern gate, which was the front gate of the temple, down over the valley of the Kidron, less than a quarter of a mile over there was the Garden of Gethsemane, directly in front of that gate. So the priest would have to be right there, put his finger in, and sprinkle that blood 7 times before the tabernacle, indicating, of course, that symbolically it was penetrating into the holy place itself, into the most holy place itself. And we read in that dramatic record of the Lord's suffering, brothers and sisters, that he fell on his knees and prayed to his Father, and his perspiration came as almost like drops of blood. And I'll guarantee he was looking towards the west, facing that eastern gate. There'd be no doubt about that. He would directly face himself to that eastern gate. And there, of course, he was symbolically representing that great sacrifice which the law could never make, the great sacrifice which could remove death for all time, and the great sacrifice which was efficacious more than one time. It was absolutely unique, and that, I believe, is what this fountain is all about, because it's all about that sacrifice. It's all about the Lord Jesus Christ. The other interesting thing was that the priest was told to take cedar wood, a piece of wood. He was told to take a red thread and a little bunch of those furry leaves which would soak up liquid. That's all we know. The Lord didn't say what he did with it. It was obvious what he had to do with it. Put the little bunch on the wood and tie it with the red thread like that and make a mop. But when he got those three things to do that with, Eleazar, of course, who was the high priest-elect, was making that offering, was told to throw it in the fire. Throw it in the fire. Up it went in smoke. So the original mop, the law couldn't use. And we know, of course, later on that another one was made, because the chapter goes on to explain that you had to be sprinkled with the water of separation on the third day, baptism, and on the seventh day, the millennium, so that to get into the kingdom of God, you've got to be baptised, your nature's got to be changed on the third and the seventh day. And they said they did that with hyssop. So obviously they made another mop. The original was burnt. And we know what happened on the cross, don't we? The last thing that happened. Now think about that. The last thing, the very last thing before he breathed his last breath. After this, Jesus, knowing that all things were now accomplished, that the scripture might be fulfilled, saith, I thirst. Now let's pause there. There's no way that the request for liquid, brothers and sisters, could be his desire to quench his thirst. There's no way. The reason is God did not allow any alleviation of suffering in that sacrifice. It had to be total. Any alleviation allowed would have meant, brothers and sisters, that God will let us get away with one little sin. Well, it couldn't happen. That was not a request for his relief, because he had already refused other liquids. It was not a request for his relief, because he could see what was at the foot of the cross. And there was set there a vessel full of vinegar, and they filled a sponge with vinegar and put it upon hyssop and put it to his mouth, which Jesus therefore had received the vinegar. He said, it's finished. Not fulfilled, doesn't mean that. It means exactly what it says. It's finished. This is what the law could never do. And he bowed his head and gave up the spirit. And he's coming back, brothers and sisters, to offer Israel another opportunity, which they spurned the first time, of eternal life. The great high priest of our profession. That, I believe, is what this fountain is all about. Now, who needs this water? Well, if you look at chapter 13, of course, in verse 1, it says this. In that day there shall be a fountain open to the house of David and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem for sin and uncleanness. In other words, brothers and sisters, from the aristocracy to the common people, there's nobody exempt from this, is there? The house of David, the royal house up here, and out there just the people. The house of David, of course, when Jesus comes, will not be in existence as it was in the past, but there will be the rulers of Israel. There are people there in the government today. And they and the people will all have a common need. It won't be any selection for people who others might consider need cleansing. They don't. It'll mean that everybody is going to have to be cleansed on that day, brothers and sisters. Now, they were offered all that, weren't they, when Jesus came the first time? He talked about himself as being a fountain, springing out of him unto eternal life. He offered that to Israel. He stood up in the crowd on the Day of Tabernacles, on the 8th day of the Feast of Tabernacles on one occasion, when the custom was for the priest to go to the pool of Siloam with a golden bowl and fill it with the water of Siloam, and holding it above their heads, they would march to the altar in Jerusalem with the crowds coming behind them, singing the words of Isaiah 12. With joy shall we draw waters out of the wells of salvation. And as that crowd was singing and chanting that as the priest went down the promenades between the people, Jesus stood up so that everyone can see him, and he called out, "If anyone wants a drink, come to me and drink." And they didn't want it. They didn't want it, brothers and sisters. But they're going to want it in the end, aren't they? Here's Ezekiel chapter 36. "Then will I sprinkle clean water upon you, and ye shall be clean. This is the fountain. From all your filthiness and from all your idols will I cleanse you. A new heart also will I give you, and a new spirit will I put within you." And spirit, in this case, as in many other cases, Old and New Testament, has the connotation of your attitude. You're going to have a different attitude. So there's going to be a new heart and a different attitude, and I will take away the stony heart out of your flesh and will give you a heart of flesh. And I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes, and you shall keep my judgments and do them. And you shall dwell in the land that I gave to your fathers. Ye shall be my people, and I will be your God. So that's what's going to happen, brothers and sisters. So Israel will gladly, of course, when they come to know who this great deliverer is, as we'll see later on in this chapter, they'll be more than willing to come in all humility to him and ask to be made clean, forgiven of their sins, with the opportunity for ultimately the removal of death itself. We've been offered that. All of us have been offered. We've been through the waters of baptism. We've accepted that. We are, brothers, in a very privileged position right at the very end of time. It's just an absolute marvel. So we come now to verses 2 and 5, and it says this: "And it shall come to us in that day, saith Yahweh of hosts, that I will cut off the names of the idols." Isn't that interesting? You see, you sometimes read the Bible and you read too quick. It doesn't say, "I'll just cut off the idols," does it? "I'll cut off their name." Well, you see, idols had names, didn't they? I'll give you a couple on the screen in a minute. But they have meanings, brothers and sisters. So it's not just idols as such. It's what they're named. Here's an example of some of them. Baal. It means master, or more specifically, possessor. That's a very, 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 very interesting word, isn't it? Possessor. It's used, for example, for a husband. He marries a woman, that's his wife. He's a Baal to that woman, not in the sense of idolatry, of course. There's nothing wrong with that. But that woman becomes his, she takes his name. That's the meaning of Baal. But there's a whole lot of Baals out there, brothers and sisters, that take possession of a lot of our folk. And you don't need me to name them. But you know what they are. They're all out there. In whatever field of society today, this world is full of them. Absolutely full of them. And they're taking possession of people. Some of them are so possessed, they carry a little idol around their hand while they're walking down the street. And if they're not careful, they'll run into a car. They're absolutely possessed by it. They're fanatical about it. They couldn't live without it. Ask them and they'll tell you. Young people, there's been several cases of young people in the paper being injured falling down stairs because they've been like this and they can't see the stairs. They're possessed with that thing in their hand. And there's a whole lot of things like that. Football's a possession. It would quickly possess me. If I had television in my house, I'd be a goner with football. I know that. That's why I've got TV. That's one of the reasons. That'd grab hold of me like nothing. Still in my blood. We're all made of flesh, brothers and sisters, flesh and blood, and you can get 101 things that can possess you, and you all know what they are. Whatever dominates your life. Why are not some people at the Bible class? You're here, there's some people not. Why are they not here? Why have we had the last few Wednesday nights very few people in this hall? Where are people? I guarantee you that in some circumstances, and I'm not here to condemn anybody, but I'm most surprised if there's not even amongst our own grouping, brothers and sisters, people that are possessed with something. And that God had his name and put to other titles with him. There were numerous of them. Beelzebub, Beelzebub, Peor, and all sorts of things. And if I was to tell you the meaning of Baal Peor, you'd be shocked. And it's one of the greatest facts of possession in this. It's a dreadful possession, a terrible thing, sexual immorality. Baal Peor. I tell you, it was an awful thing. That possessed people. Cost 24,000 lives on the occasion that it did. Teraphim. Rachel had one of them hidden in her tent. I'm going to show you at the end of these lists. I've only got about 4 of them. At the end of these, I'm going to show you something about that. A teraphim. It was actually a family idol. It was like a claim to property. It was like a title deed to the inheritance. And she had one of them because they saw what their father was doing to Jacob and how he cheated Jacob time and time again. And when Jacob agreed to go, and especially after his flocks had multiplied and he became a very rich man, those girls were quite happy to go off with him and leave Dad behind them. But one of them, brothers and sisters, wanted some sort of claim to what was left behind. And she hid that in her tent. I emphasise that, and you'll see the reason why in a minute. Asherah. Happy. The goddess of sexual immorality. Happy. Happy to the world, brothers and sisters. Gratification of lust. A disease I suppose we all have, haven't we? We're normal people. We got red blood, whether we're male or female. And in this world, brothers and sisters, that God has got idols everywhere. Everywhere. And it dresses accordingly at the altar of the worship of that. And some people are unaware of that. Completely unaware of it. And today's fashions, brothers and sisters, especially with womankind, are absolutely tremendous, aren't they? And if brethren were asked, and if they were honest, they'd have to be a very unnatural man to say it was no worry to them. Asherah is everywhere. We've never had an age like it. Summer's coming on. It'll be an ordeal to go to the shopping centre for anyone who tries to keep their self-control together. Asherah is everywhere. Molech. Who doesn't want to be king? Oh, you say, I don't want to be a king. No, we don't. But we're proud people, aren't we? We want to be important, don't we? We want to do things that are outstanding that someone else can't do, perhaps. I don't know. I'm proud. If I wasn't proud, I wouldn't be a human being. I fight that very rigid. I have to fight that very, very seriously. I'll be honest with you. It's very difficult to keep yourself in control, especially when people praise you up. It's not easy. Well, that's God. That's God, brothers and sisters. Dagon. That's the last one I want to put up there because it really, what does that mean, brothers and sisters? It means it's something fishy about a God, isn't it? When that God fell over down in the cities of the Philistines, hands and its feet, and all that was left was the fishy part. God knocked off its hands and feet and left the fishy part across the threshold. It's a nothing. That's what idols are. They're nothing, brothers and sisters. They're half man and half fish. It's ridiculous. So God knocked off the hands and feet and just left the body like a fish across the altar, across the threshold. They couldn't get past it. So there's some of your idols. We could have another list up there. But look at this reference. Think about Rachel. Cursed be the man that maketh any graven or molten image, an abomination of Yahweh, the work of the hands of the craftsman, and putteth it in a secret place. And puts it in a secret place. Have you got anything in secret in your house that you wouldn't like brothers and sisters to see? Have you? I don't know. Are there things in our life, brothers and sisters, that we hide? I'm not standing here talking to you because I'm exempt from that either. I'm including me. I'm thinking about that. But that's what Rachel did. And all the people, everybody says, Amen. And in our hearts we know there's something home we hope others don't see. Is it something that possesses us? Is it because we are very careful about money at the expense of other people and we don't give much to the truth? Are we got magazines or picture shows home that make you happy? Are we proud brothers and sisters and think we can be kings and queens in this world? Well, it's all a farce. It's fishy, isn't it? Are any of those things in our house in a secret place? So God's going to cut off the names of the idols, the names of them, what they stand for. We may not have a graven image. I doubt whether anyone's got a graven image. We don't have that sort of thing. But we got things, brothers and sisters, with a name attached to them. And unfortunately, those things mean a lot to us, and they shouldn't. Well, the prophet says here in Zechariah that he will cause the prophets and the spirit to pass out of the land. Now, we know about an unclean spirit that's going to pass out of the land, and boy, will we rejoice, won't we? And that is, we won't turn this reference up because you're so familiar with it. Revelation 16, the chapter that talks about Armageddon. And there's going to be 3 unclean spirits like frogs. And we know who they are. Liberty, equality and fraternity. They're all encapsulated in one word in our generation, simple word, humanism. That's what it is, it's humanism. Democracy. Humanism. It's all encapsulated in that, brothers and sisters. And the world's full of it. And it is encroaching on our thinking. We don't think that it is. We don't think it's encroaching on us. But when we look back, and I'm going to show you an example that's going to come up in this chapter, everyone's going to shudder in their seats when they read this, when they start to think about it. And you'd say, well, we couldn't do that today. Of course we couldn't. Because it's absolutely the opposite to humanism. So you can't do anything. And you see it creeps into the brotherhood. So instead of the righteousness of God being coupled with loving your neighbour, we love our neighbour without the righteousness of God. That's the problem, isn't it? You can't love God unless you love your neighbour. True. But you can love your neighbour without loving God, because you can let him off. Let anything go. Don't worry about it. It's not worth worrying about. We shouldn't make a fuss. We can't be hard-hearted. We've got to be compassionate. What does the Bible say? That's the last thing it's thought of. Liberty, equality and fraternity is nothing else but humanism, and it's dressed up today in that form, brothers and sisters, and it's devastating. It's absolutely devastating what it's done to society. Just look at your law courts. Just have a look at them. Just listen to the sentences that are handed down for heinous crimes. Look at the things that today are now legalised, which God calls an utter abomination. Humanism. Well, Yahweh says, I'm going to take the unclean spirits out of the world. Oh, come, Lord Jesus. Come, Lord Jesus, brothers and sisters. That's what we want to see. Now, you see, you come to verse 3. It shall come to pass that when yet he shall prophesy, then his father and his mother that begat him shall say unto him, Thou shalt not live, for thou speakest lies in the name of Yahweh. and his father and his mother beget him shall thrust him through when he prophesieth. Now, if you were to say that to people today, even some people in the truth today, they'd recoil in horror that, Mum and Dad, my own child, for goodness sake, they'd recoil in horror. And they'd probably look at you, if you told them that you were a brother that were pretty hard-hearted. You lacked compassion and understanding and sympathy. This is God talking, brothers and sisters. It's not me. This is God talking. Can't we understand that? Can't we see that we've got to put that first? He's got to be number one in our lives, got to the top of the list. And we bring up our children to follow him. Of course we're compassionate to our children. Of course we try and help them with the truth. Of course we rebuke them and discipline them, and then we love them. Of course we do. And we do all that we can to get them to walk in the right way. But if they will not, we don't go their way. And we don't give the view, brothers and sisters, that it's okay, because it isn't. Now, this is the Bible talking, and it's not talking about the law. It's talking about what's going to happen in the future, but it's based on the law. You see, it's a repetition of this law, isn't it? We've been reading this. If thy brother, the son of thy mother, or thy son, or thy daughter, or the wife of thy bosom, or thy friend, which is thine own soul, entice thee secretly, saying, Let us go and serve other gods, which thou hast not known, thou nor thy fathers, namely the gods of the people which are round about you, nigh unto thee, or far off from thee, from one end of the earth even unto the other end of the earth, thou shalt not consent unto him, nor hearken unto him. Neither shall I pity him, neither shalt thou spare, neither shalt thou conceal him, but thou shalt surely kill him. Thine hand shall be first upon him to put him to death, and afterward the hands of all the people. You're first. Mum and Dad, you're first. And then everybody else can join in. If we've got in our family someone who says, hey, it's around the corner, or someone that says, come away with us, come, you want to see this place, we can get there. We go by plane, ship, whatever you like. You want to see this joint, it's beautiful. All these entitlements near you are far off. All this is in the world, brothers and sisters. It's around the corner or overseas, anywhere. You can have a good time. You can be happy, providing you worship the names of other gods. Well, Yahweh says, you're first. There is a lesson, brothers and sisters, of parental responsibility. People don't like that. Probably don't like me saying it here. But I am not saying it. I'm reading the Bible. That's God speaking, brothers and sisters. That's not me talking to you. Now, you think of all the disasters in this life that's come about because of family relationships. How dramatic changes in people's thinking. When one of their children go wrong, they think completely differently. They act differently. They're not the same people. They're full of compassion. Well, that's great, providing the law of God comes first. Brothers and sisters, have you ever thought of the graphic simplicity of the sacrifice of Christ? You ever thought about it? People say he died for us. Yes, he did. Others say he died for himself. In a sense, he did, because he was involved in what he did for others. But there's another brother who knows a lot about the Bible who once said this: he first and foremost died for his Father. And it's absolutely true. What for? Because he went up there on that cross as a man, as a mere man, he was up there on that cross to tell the world that my Father will not tolerate sin. I haven't sinned, but this is the nature that did it. And it's the first thing we admit when we're baptised. We're baptised into his death. And it's a death which declared God is right. Now, once that's done, brothers and sisters, there is no limit for mercy and compassion and love. There is no limit once that is understood. And that's all that this is about. Once we understand, and other people understand, there is no limit that we could go showing love and mercy and compassion. Now, to give you the exact opposite impression, when this new Pope came to take the papal throne, he was interviewed by the BBC. And the commentator from the BBC came up to him and said, "Pope Francis, how do you think God looks upon a homosexual?" His answer? With love and compassion. Is that the sort of love and compassion you want in our meetings? With love and compassion. Well, that's a vastly different God that blew Sodom and Gomorrah out of the ground and left the biggest hole in earth by far, scarring the globe. Biggest hole in the world is what he thought about that. See what I mean, brothers and sisters? This is why these chapters are here. This is why all these idols are mentioned. And then it comes to family relationships, because that's where they all take place, don't they? You're going to wind up in your home. If either we or our kith and kin are going to go off and do things wrong, we're going to mess up the house, aren't we? Well, that's what's going to be happening if we do not read this Bible. Now we get to verse 4. Now he says, here's another thing that's going to happen in that day. The prophets are going to be ashamed. Every one of his vision that he prophesies. Neither shall they wear a rough garment to deceive. Now, a rough garment in the Hebrew, brothers and sisters, really means a garment of hair. Now, we know, of course, that Elijah had a garment of hair. He was clothed with the skin of an animal. John the Baptist had a similar garment. We know the type of animal that John the Baptist had. It was a camel. So he had a garment of camel skins. Now in Zephaniah chapter 1 and verse 4, you turn that back with me, you read about another type of garment. In Zephaniah chapter 1 and verse 4. Well, here God says in the days of Zephaniah, I will stretch out my hand upon Judah and upon all the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and I will cut off the remnant of Baal from this place, and the name of the Chemarims with the priests. The name of the Chemarims. Who are they? Well, actually, the Hebrew word, brothers and sisters, means to be black. That doesn't mean that I don't think the colour of their skin at all. It's no reference to, I think, the colour of the person's skin. I think it's a reference to the way they're dressed. And why would you dress in black? Who would choose black? Well, they would. Why? Well, they're very humble people, aren't they? Black's a symbol of mourning, isn't it? Very humble people wear that. That's why the scribes and Pharisees strutted around, brothers and sisters, dressed to the nines, didn't they? In their gorgeous robes, not black, but they were dreadfully humble people, weren't they? Jesus said that, didn't he? You know, he said, you do this and you do that, you do something else. He said, you like whited sepulchres. As far as he was concerned, all their dress told him that they were in the grave. But you see, that's what these Chemarims were. They were dressed in black. They professed to be humble, brothers and sisters. Jesus said, our priests, they go around in long robes. Now, if you want to see a demonstration of that, have you ever seen the coronation of the Pope? What they do? All the cardinals come in, don't they? And they're dressed in red. I think that's a classic choice. I think it's a very good choice. Couldn't dress in a better colour, could they? And there are dozens of them. And he sits up there on his papal throne, and they all get down on their hands and knees and touch the ground with their foreheads and their hands out like that, all spread around the Pope. Sheer and utter blasphemy, isn't it? But they're beautifully dressed, and they're all dressed in red. And that's the best colour they could ever choose. All these cardinals that are there are all dressed in red, brothers and sisters. And the reason these prophets, Zechariah says, are dressed like they are was to deceive. He says they're deceived, don't they? Coming back to Zechariah chapter 13, He says that's why they're dressed like they are. All the prophets, he says, they speak lies in the name of Yahweh. They deceive people. They should be ashamed, every one of his vision. Neither should they wear a garment of hair to deceive people. So some of them may be very, very ascetic in the way they dress. They might, as Jesus said, they used to put ashes. What they used to do is put the ashes on their head, sort of soaked in an oil, then they'd put their bonnet on a hot day so that when it melted, it ran down and streaked their faces. So they went around the streets in their beautiful garments, but all their faces looking a dreadful sight, and a mournful look on their face, and they were so humble. And the people were deceived. And I tell you who was deceived with them? The apostles, rather not them, but the disciples they were known as. The disciples were deceived. They came to the Lord on one occasion to say to him, Lord, do you realise you've offended the scribes and Pharisees? You've offended them. This is what they said. Even the 12 disciples at that stage of their life had not seen through these people. But God sees through them, brothers and sisters. God sees right through them. And Zechariah says he sees through them. And they're not going to be wearing that garment too long, are they? Because the day's coming, isn't it? And is rapidly coming when the Lord Jesus Christ shall appear. What's going to happen? Verse 5 is what's going to happen. He's going to get caught, isn't he? And he shall say, oh, I'm not a prophet. And he suddenly realised he's got this dress on. Oh, well, I'm not really a prophet. I'm a farmer. I'm a farmer, he says. A husband, that's what it means. He says, look, I've been doing this all my life. And he's telling a blatant lie. His very appearance would tell it's a lie. But he's caught because now the Messiah's here. They don't know who he is yet. They don't know who he is. But he's now got rid of the enemy in Jerusalem. We believe this is the stage of history it'll happen. He's now going to reveal to Israel all these false prophets. Look at the guys that go down to the Wailing Wall, brothers and sisters, with their black hats, with their little, ringlets down here to show that they kept the law, that, to keep their locks unshaven. So here they are there. And there they are with all their quaint and peculiar clothes on. They're going to be shown up in public, and they're going to say, in that clothing. You can see it happening. Faced with the Messiah. They don't know who he is, but they know there's been a tremendous upheaval. Jerusalem has now been, the enemy's been defeated. They come out and they say, who are you? What are you doing? No, I'm really a farmer. Too late, brothers and sisters. The very appearance will give them away, won't it? Too late. And you look, when you read this, see the next verse? Let's read verse 5 and 6. Now leave out the word, see in verse 6 the word one is in italics because it's not in the original. But he shall say, I'm no prophet, I'm just a farmer. For a man taught me to keep cattle from my youth, and shall say unto him, hey, but what's the wounds in your hands? Now, can you picture that in your mind, that confrontation? Can you picture that in your mind in Jerusalem in the day coming, when the smoke's clearing away a bit, and Israel's realised there's been a tremendous upheaval all around the land. They have somehow miraculously got out of this at the last moment. 2/3 of them are gone. And these chaps some of them still left, dressed the way they are, making obvious that they are the serious-minded religious people in the land, all making out like that. And this one comes up and accuses them of being like, oh no, look, I'm only a farmer. Oh, what's wrong with your hands? Can you see that? Is that a vision in your mind? It's a vision in mine. What a day of revelation, brothers and sisters. What are these wounds in your hands? What are they doing there? What are they doing? I'm just a farmer. What are these wounds all about? Who is this King of Glory? Psalm 24. Who is he? Remember Thomas? All busily all gathered in that room, the women coming in with their stories, and the two men on the way to Emmaus with their story, and Jesus had already appeared to all of them except Thomas. He said, I'm not going to believe it till I can touch. I want to feel it. I want to see him. I won't believe this till I actually see it with my own eyes. And he had all the evidence in the world in front of him, plus the fact that all of them should have known it, and if we would have been there, we'd have probably been just as ignorant. We ought to have known what it said in the Old Testament. We ought to have been known because he taught us for 3.5 years. There was no excuse, but we were all too slow, weren't we? So we're people that we're not going to believe anything unless we can touch it. There are a lot of people like that. You can show a person, I've done this, show a person in the Bible, you say, I believe so-and-so. Where do you believe that? Here. And you can show them chapter and verse. And it's ever so simple. And you can see by the look on their face, they're not going to believe that. Until somehow you've got to illustrate it somehow. You don't know how. But it's there. Well, that's what Thomas was. And we know what happened, brothers and sisters. The Lord invited him to come and do what he wanted. More than he wanted. See that? Oh, his hole's still in his side, Thomas. Put your hand in here. Look at my hands. But Thomas was a better man than to give an excuse. He was just a farmer. He said something that was absolutely outstanding, that no one had ever said at that point, anybody in that way. My Lord and my God. He went from disbelief, brothers and sisters, by the feeling of those wounds, to the highest pinnacle of understanding that this man represented God. That was an enormous rise in understanding. But he had to touch someone. Look at Revelation 7, chapter 1 rather, verse 7. Just look at this. Israel are not going to be the only ones, brothers and sisters, that do this. Israel won't be the only ones that are going to be see his hands. You will know this reference, all of you, but when you look at it. In Revelation 1 verse 7, behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him. So you see, it's everybody, not only Jews. And all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Wail because of him. Do you know what that word in the Greek literally means? I'll tell you what it means. It means, brothers and sisters, to do this. It means to go, oh no, no! Can you imagine it? It means to beat your breast in anguish. Imagine all these people as being duped by the priesthood of the day. Imagine all these stupid Muslims with their mad antics and mass murdering people in the name of religion. Imagine all the Jews with their blooming hats, black hats and their tassels and so forth. All of them seeing this man and saying, oh no, no, why didn't we believe that? And that's what we'll be doing, brothers and sisters, at the judgment seat. We can't face up to it. We'll be doing that. I hope none of us will. We pray we'll be in the kingdom of God. It's so close. It's so dramatic. It's so dramatic. It's so close. And we're going to, in any day, see divinity, brothers and sisters. I don't want to be standing at the judgment seat, oh no, no. I don't want to be doing that. But that's what a lot of people are going to be doing, aren't they? Not just Jews. Revelation 1 verse 7 says the Gentiles are going to be amongst that crowd. They're going to be amongst that crowd, brothers and sisters. And then we get back to Zechariah. See a little paragraph mark here because the tenor of the prophet changes at this point in verse 7. Awake, O sword, against my shepherd. Whose sword? Well, I believe it's God. You see, in Romans 13, we won't turn this up, when Paul tells us to be subject to magistrates and to rulers for the truth's sake, he says, for he that beareth the sword doesn't bear it in vain. In other words, to take a sword in biblical language is to exercise authority. And by whose authority was Jesus put to death? Oh, we might say, well, Pilate's. Was it? Well, if it was grudgingly given, wasn't it? It wasn't a very sharp sword. It was very grudgingly given. But the Bible tells us in two places, and more than that really, but specifically in two places, that Jesus died by the determinate counsel and foreknowledge of God. Awake the sword. This is by the determinate counsel and foreknowledge of God. Why is it put here? Because the reason that the divine sword was turned against that son for the moment was for the sake of all these liars and cheats and sinners that's been mentioned here, that this is the only way they're going to get into the kingdom of God, for God to take over the command and say, right, let's get down to business. This boy's got to go because of you people. And he represents us, brothers and sisters. Awake that sword. And the divine authority was behind that, and he died according to the determinate counsel and foreknowledge of God. That's what the record says, brothers and sisters. But God said he's my fellow. He's my fellow. That's what God called him, brothers and sisters. The word means a neighbour. It means one who stands next to me. So the sword of authority is taken against the one standing alongside of him. Because of all these things that have happened in Israel and in the world, that this Son of Almighty God has got to be put to an excruciating death at the command of his Father, to tell the world that my Father is right. And when God raised him from the dead, God told the world, I am right, because he didn't sin. He's right here and he's right there. And all that was done, brothers and sisters, was by divine authority. And then, of course, we read about the sheep being scattered, and he turns his hand on the little ones. And you will remember we did that as a special night in the middle of Zechariah to tie all that together. But Jesus, of course, quotes that in the Garden of Gethsemane. It is written. He said, all you shall be scattered from me this night, for it is written, I will smite the shepherd, and the sheep shall be scattered. So you see, I will smite the shepherd. It's time for God to put his Son to death for their sake. But the little ones are scattered. They run out of the Garden of Gethsemane in all directions to get out of the way. But the divine hand, the other hand, remember the two hands? None can pluck them out of my hand. None can pluck them out of my Father's hand. There's never been a shepherd. There's never been a case of a shepherd not being there. And there's a son lay inert in that tomb for 3 days in the unconsciousness of death. The other hand came over the top. And they didn't know that, but Jesus told them. He told them that in Matthew 18. Don't offend one of these little ones. What think ye? A man had 100 sheep. And he combines those two figures together to tell us what this is all about. And so we come to the last part, brothers and sisters, in verses 8 and 9. So 2 parts of the people shall be cut off. I'll bring 2 parts, he said. It shall come to pass that in all the land, saith Yahweh, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die, but a third shall be left therein. In all the land, not just in Jerusalem. How many Jews in the land? I think around about between 7 and 8 million. So it looks like, doesn't it? A few million of those are going to go. It'll be like the Holocaust all over again, brothers and sisters. It'll be like the Holocaust all over again. And how will that happen? Because of an evil thought. Gog comes into the land, or before he comes into the land, he thinks an evil thought. I will go up to the land of unwalled villages, Ezekiel 38. That's a classic description of a kibbutz. It's an unwalled village. I'm going to go up there. And why would he want to do that? It's the most logical thing in the world. In the end, when the decision will be made, and it won't be long, it's going to be the easiest decision that all the nations have ever made. Because when the mess, brothers and sisters, starts to spin out further and further, and there's no answers, when there's no answers, what's the answer to the Palestinians and the Israelis? Well, it's gone now, isn't it? Because now Abbas in the Gaza Strip is teaming up with Hamas, and they're pals now. They hate the sight of each other. But all of a sudden, they're big friends. And Israel says, no more talks with you, they're terrorists. So you see what's happening? So now they're getting the Arab factions welded together. We got Putin hammering on the door of the Ukraine, where the ancient Russian Empire was born, with one of the first princes called Vladimir. Think about it. And he knows that his empire cannot be built without that. And they're massing on the border of Europe. They're massing on the border of Russia onto the east and to the west over here. NATO's massing forces here. They're at odds. Somebody's going to put them together. Somebody's going to bring those two factions together. And I believe the next big move, brothers and sisters, is obvious. The strength is in the iron. That's what Daniel said. The strength is in the iron. Iron of what? The feet. He wasn't talking about up here, the legs. He's talking about the feet. And the feet are held together by clay, but the strength is in the iron, and the clay, the common people, is the old communistic spirit. This is the Russian, and there they are together, and the iron is going to keep them together, and the iron is in Europe. And the day will come, and you could look, it's so obvious. You just listen to the whispers in the corridors, which you hear on the news. You can hear the echoes. You can hear it coming, brothers and sisters. The day will come when they will sit around a table like Caiaphas did with his group, and Caiaphas sat there and they talk about this cursed Nazarene. What in the heck are we going to do about him? He's doing all these miracles. We've got to stop him. This is ruination. They're all talking about one thing, and Caiaphas thumps the table. Now he said, "You know nothing at all. Listen to me. It's expedient that one man die for the nation. What is more logical around that table, which will inevitably come when the world sees no way out of this problem? The strength is in the iron, and I believe it'll come from that direction. You know nothing at all. Surely 7 million people can't hold the world at ransom. And echoes in every heart who hate the Jews. It's sticking out like a bomb. And it'll be poetic justice, brothers and sisters. And when his hands are held up and reveals himself to his people, and they finally come to the full realisation, he will then reveal to them. If he had withheld his power, the other third as well would have gone like a flash, and there wouldn't have been a Jew alive in the land. But nobody did that for him. They let him go all the way. But he won't. I reckon that's the way it's going to go. I can't see anything else for it. It's got to go that way. And every day you listen to what you hear. Do you know that from Algeria, coming across through Libya and right across through Egypt, across the sea, over there into the other side of the Red Sea, you go up through Jordan, Syria, Lebanon and Saudi Arabia, just in that area, let alone what's beyond that, in Iran, Iraq, but just go that far. You know how many people there are in that arc across there? With 7 million Jews here? Listen to it. 337 million. So their advantage is 330 million. It's expedient, isn't it, that a meagre 7 million people. Awake, O sword, smite the shepherd, the sheep shall be scattered. But it'll come to pass, when 2/3 are gone, I will bring the third through the fire and refine them as gold is refined, brothers and sisters. I will bring a third through the fire. Come over to Malachi's prophecy. No, but I think I've got it on here. Yes, that's right. Look at this. You've read Malachi chapter 3. Refined and purified. Just listen to it. But who may abide the day of his coming? And who shall stand when he appeareth? For he is like a refiner's fire, and like fuller's soap. And he shall sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. He shall purify the sons of Levi, and purge them as gold and silver, that they may offer unto Yahweh an offering in righteousness. Then shall the offering of Judah and Jerusalem be pleasant unto Yahweh, as in the days of old, and as in former years. And I will come near to you to judgment, and I will be a swift witness against sorcerers, against adulterers, and against false swearers, against those that oppress the hireling in his wages, the widow and the fatherless, and that turn aside the stranger from his right, and fear not me, saith Yahweh of armies. For I am Yahweh, I do not change. Therefore ye sons of Jacob are not consumed. Hey, if you didn't read that properly, you'd think he was talking about consuming them. He's not. He's talking about purifying them, refining them, isn't he? See what he's saying? This is a positive action, brothers and sisters. This is not negative. He will sit as a refiner and a purifier. I don't intend to destroy you totally. You could almost hear the echo of Zechariah, can't you? 2/3 of you are gone. But I am not going to have all you consumed. Do you know that when Simeon and Levi, that we've been hearing about, Simeon and Levi from Steve, when hearing about the Levites, you know how they got together and committed that cruel act? And then when Jacob fled that place because the people were rising against them, the record says, and they did not pursue after the sons of Jacob. When God could have easily have impeded their progress and had them slaughtered for what they did. But it says, and they did not pursue after the sons of Jacob. Therefore, ye sons of Jacob are not consumed. So the Lord is coming, brothers and sisters, at the last gasp of Israel to rescue from that tremendous, tremendous thing. And then the prophecy of this chapter finishes with this. Verse 9, he's going to bring a third through the fire. He will refine them as silver is refined, and will try them as gold is tried, which is what Malachi's been telling us. And they shall call upon my name, and I'll hear them. And I will say, it is my people. And they shall say, Yahweh is my God. That's a bit different than the conversation about that cheat who said he was only a farmer, wasn't it? Now there's going to be a real confession here, isn't there? See, I will call upon them, he says. They shall call upon me. See, it's got to come from them, doesn't it? This is the righteousness of God. God doesn't step in there and say, now, you're all forgiven, it'll be all okay. No. They have got to call upon God. That's important to note that. When you read these things, they shall call on my name. Now therefore, what have I here, saith Yahweh? People is taken away for naught. They that rule over them make them to house, saith Yahweh, and my name continually every day is blasphemed. Therefore my people shall know my name. Therefore they shall know that in that day that I am he that doth speak. Behold, it is I. They shall know my name, he says. They shall call upon my name. It's me. You call to me. I'm Yahweh, understand? The God of Israel. There's no other God. I'm the one. And they'll know him, brothers and sisters. So will I make my holy name known in the midst of my people Israel. I will not let them pollute my holy name any more. Oh, they didn't pollute it, brothers and sisters. They don't even pronounce it. You don't talk about it. It's too holy. That's how they polluted it. They never saw the import, did they? If you're not going to talk about it, brothers and sisters, don't tell anybody that God intends to become manifest in us. Don't dare tell people that. Don't tell your children that God wants to manifest himself in them when they grow up. Don't tell them that's too holy. That was their holiness. But now they know him, don't they? They shall know my holy name, and the heathen shall know that I am Yahweh, the Holy One of Israel. Behold, it is come, it is done, saith the Lord Yahweh. This is the day which I have spoken of. And then, of course, it is my people. Once that's done, then said God, call his name Lo Ami, that is, not my people, and I will not be your God. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, ye are not my people, it shall be said unto them, you are the sons of the living God. So he's going to, that when they know his name, God will then know them. And you know, brethren and sisters, at that time saith Yahweh, will I be a God unto all the families of Israel, and they shall be my people. Imagine that third that comes through that Holocaust. Just imagine, brothers and sisters, the impact upon those people. The critical moment in history. When's all that going to happen? How long have we got, brothers and sisters? You know this reference, don't you? For I would not, brethren, you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest ye should be wise in your own conceits, that blindness in part is happened to Israel, until the fullness of the Gentiles be come in. And so all Israel shall be saved, as it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. Now you know that reference, but that's a quotation. Here's where it's coming from. So shall they fear the name of Yahweh from the west, and his glory from the rising of the sun. When the enemy shall come in like a flood, the Spirit of Yahweh shall lift up a standard against him. And here comes Romans. And the Redeemer shall come to Zion, and of them that turn from transgression in Jacob, saith Yahweh. As for me, this is my covenant with them, saith Yahweh. My spirit that is upon thee, and my words which I have put in thy mouth, shall not depart out of thy mouth, nor out of the mouth of thy seed, nor out of the mouth of thy seed's seed, saith Yahweh, from henceforth and forever. And when will that happen? Just note that phrase. When the enemy shall come in like a flood. And that's the quotation that Paul takes in Romans 11, which we know backwards. But you ever notice where it's coming from? And brothers and sisters, we're about to see that flood. There's nothing more sure. It's nothing more sure than that. The world is absolutely galloping to its own doom. Everywhere. Look, brothers and sisters, the cracks are opening up everywhere. Morally, financially, physically, the world is collapsing. It's just going mad. And when the enemy comes in like a flood, that's the day. And we hope, brothers and sisters, when that happens, we'll already be with our Lord. We will already be with him. And I hope, brothers and sisters, and I know it won't, we won't have for him to show us his hands. Because we see that every Sunday morning. Don't you? We bow our heads over those emblems. We see them every Sunday morning. I hope we don't have to go to him and say, I'm only just a farmer, who are you? I don't think he'll ever have to lift up his hands. He's already done that for us. He's done that already. They are vividly in our memory, aren't they? They should be. And if we do that, brothers and sisters, if we keep that vision of him like that, we'll be here with him. All our history will be behind us. All our worries are gone. All the woes we've gone through life and the family tragedies many of us have seen in our families, one way or another, they don't all go right. And you know, your heart aches and you wonder and you think about it and you shed tears and you can do nothing about some things in life you can't mend. Gone! We're with him, riding upon his white horse before the armies of heaven. And when that flood comes in, he will meet it, brothers and sisters, head on. He will meet that head on. And that's what chapter 14 is all about, isn't it? Well, we've got 3 nights to do chapter 14, which should be quite comfortable. And we hope, therefore, brothers and sisters, to try and see the finale in all its dramatic proportions when we come to that tremendous chapter, the day of the Lord cometh.